Look, we're going to get straight into the election and the state of our economy. And joining me is Warren Hogan, independent economist, and also from Washington is Professor Stephen Hamilton, Professor of Economics at the George Washington University. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time. We did this a couple of weeks ago as we were setting up for the budget and the election. Warren, I just want to start with you. You've now seen the budget. You've seen the budget reply. The issue is, where was the whole mantra? Where was the build-up for Australia for faster economic growth? Both sides seem to be very modest in their expectations for how quickly they can get the Australian economy to grow.
Yeah, well, I don't think we can expect a huge amount of policy detail from the coalition as an opposition party. I mean, it's been seen time and again that oppositions try to sort of win office through the other mob being thrown out. We know the strategy of the government, and that is to grow the economy, focus on the care economy, rising tax burden, and the risks that we're seeing come with that.
But have a look at this, the debts, the deficits going on for 10 years. There's no plan to actually get the debt down or to actually reduce those deficits into the future. The only plan is just to seemingly keep on spending.
Yeah, well, the budget this week showed that the Charter of Budget Honesty, in as much it's about getting or charting a course back to budget balance, has been ripped up and thrown out because there is no meaningful move in the budget deficit in the next 4 years. And that's really the reality. I mean, I'd argue the next 2 years is all you can really think about when it comes to budgeting. The coalition has, though, made some broad outlines of stabilising government spending as a share of the economy, of keeping, hopefully, that tax burden under control, although I think their initial target will be to chart that course back to budget balance. But they're not going to give us a lot of detail at this stage.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it. Stephen Hamilton, always good to chat to you. I just want to go to that issue because quite clearly on both sides you've got slightly different views. The coalition says it will spend less, but the question is where it will spend less and whether that is politically palatable for it. But neither side has really got a growth agenda, it would seem.
Yeah, no, that's right, and it's particularly concerning when the Labor Party comes up with a big spending initiative like Medicare bulk billing, which you can understand costs about $3 to the taxpayer for every $1 that customers actually benefit, with most of the rest going to kind of doctors and middlemen. So that's a kind of bad way to spend money, and yet the coalition backed it immediately. The way our steelworks bailout, which any economist would go, man, not again. We're throwing good money after bad. The coalition backed it in immediately. So I'm not seeing a lot of differentiation in terms of the brass taxes, right? What they're actually going to deliver, And the only thing the coalition didn't back in was the one good thing in the budget, which was income tax cuts. So we're in a topsy-turvy world where you have the coalition backing in Medicare bulk billing, but refusing to back in income tax cuts. So, I agree with Warren. I get the signal from the coalition that they're serious about getting the budget back to surplus. I fully recognise, Angus Taylor, the Shadow Treasurer, has said, he wants to cap spending at the level of economic growth, and that's very good. We've lost those fiscal guardrails. So these are all good signals. But the problem is what they're asking us to do is to take them on faith, to say back in 2013, we did the right thing. We got the budget under control. We kind of showed discipline, but they aren't giving us any kind of meat in order for us to kind of, believe those promises. So, that's the question. Should we take them on faith?
It's going to be interesting to watch that because one issue that I would say is there's been no conversation about let's cut corporate taxes. Let's actually take the hit on corporate taxes short term to try and get Australia going. Let's try and change that productivity question to get Australia moving on that front. Because unless there is political change, the country is stuck. Now, I'm not talking about a change in election. I'm talking about a change in attitude from both political sides, and yet both are so modest in their ambitions. I think if they were more ambitious, that Australians would back them in, back the leadership if they would go that way. But neither side wants to go that way. They're being very demure, as it were.
Yeah, well, that's the political question. Will they take that risk? Bill Shorten took that risk and it did not pay off with a whole range of what many economists would thought was some sensible policy reforms. And to your point, I think our challenges are even bigger than that. Let us see, but the problem we face is that this isn't a fear of something going wrong. It's going wrong now. Our living standards are going backwards now. Our productivity is going backwards now. And so that's the worrying sign, to Stephen's point, is the coalition isn't actually addressing the way to fix that. And to your point, a growth agenda, or if that's the right terminology. So I totally understand this, but we are left with those two choices. We know the government strategy. The problem is, if we just keep kicking governments out every 3 years, no one's going to get anything done.
No, that's right. And there's the other point as well. So, Stephen, to that issue, you've actually got right now, so this whole issue about bracket creep has taken so much away. The government tries to divert the attention to supermarkets or to other parts of the economy. And there is a fundamental issue of addressing living standards, of addressing the fact that people have jobs but they seem to be under stress. Like at the moment, the government is awash with those employees' taxpayer dollars and yet doesn't seem itself to be able to get ahead.
Yeah, so look, let's separate two things. One, how to address this short-term cost of living crisis. There's a political pressure to throw money at people. I totally understand it. You know, that is the entire motivation for Peter Dutton cutting fuel excise, because there is no economic justification for that policy. You know, I get it. I understand. I'm not a politician. I'm an economist. I can tell you what an economist would say, which is you deal with the cost of living crisis by the government tightening its belt so people don't have to. It's very simple. Warren and I have been telling them this for 3 years and they haven't listened to us, and neither party is listening to us now. So there's that short-term problem. Now, I'm hoping in the medium term we're out of that problem and we can start to think about the long-run trend, which is when we want to start doing the things you talked about, right? Cutting corporate tax rates, getting productivity back again. And I will point to one thing in the budget, which again is those income tax cuts, which have been dismissed as a kind of, coffee a week. But if you combine those income tax cuts with the income tax cuts in stage 3 that the government introduced, they've actually cut the lowest tax bracket from 19% down to 14%, which actually is a pretty dramatic reduction for a group of Australian taxpayers who are pretty sensitive to taxes because they're part-time workers. So I actually think that's kind of the one sort of ray of hope in the government's agenda, in the budget, in they're actually willing to spend money to cut tax rates to get people back into the workforce. So, if that's a signal of where this party, this government wants to go in the future, then I think that's actually reasonably promising. Yeah,
it's interesting, Stephen. But then, of course, against this week, there's a Reserve Bank interest rate decision, which universally is expected to be on hold. But at some stage, the Reserve Bank, again, is going to continue to cut rates. There's going to be a series of rate cuts you'd imagine coming. But the point is, we're also going to hear from the Reserve Bank governor their attitude towards not just the budget, but the budget reply as well.
Yeah. No, we've got a few important issues to deal with this week. One, this is the new board. What will they do? I think it's going to be a firm hold. 9-2 will be the 7-2 will be the vote. I think there'll be a couple of rate cut callers in there. It'll be an interesting dynamic for the Australian market to deal with, and a bit of second guessing who those people are. But really, I think this this election changes everything for the RBA. No matter what happens, they move from a very politically sensitive time of the political cycle to one of freedom. And I don't think whatever happens in the budget, the RBA is going to get on with it. So I don't think you should be penciling in a whole series of rate cuts. We might get them, I don't know. But I can also put a very plausible case why they're not moving anything in the next 6 months.
All right, I'll go back again, Stephen, and that is just in regards to that, where does that go with the Reserve Bank? Because it's got a very sensitive change about looking at Labor and Labor stats right now.
Yeah, so I think the way to think about the RBA at the moment is the uncertainty bands have widened over the past 6 months, really. I mean, it's very difficult to predict what the terminal interest rate is, right? So we know they've cut once. The question is, how many more times do they cut? Bullock has said the market is overstating the degree of rate cuts that are coming down the pipe, and maybe there's only two or maximum 3 left to go until they stop, which is not a lot of rate relief given where rates are. But I would push towards this question of kind of global uncertainty, right? We have a genuine, I mean, I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. of all places. So, I go to kids' birthday parties and talk to the parents of kids who work for the Justice Department or the EPA, they're all getting fired. There's sort of massive uncertainty in the US economy. Trump just put 25% taxes on all auto imports, which is just extraordinary. So, the degree of policy uncertainty in the US, the way that will flow through to investment, through to economic growth, inflation, how that will spill over to other countries, including Australia, China, all across the world, that is just creating massive uncertainty. So any rate better that has a strong, confidence about the trajectory of interest rates going forward, I think is mistaken.
Tell you what, Stephen Hamilton, and to also Warren Hogan here in the studio, many thanks for your time today and for your analysis.